So the 2022 season is not going to end the way that you wanted. How far in the future should the Rams look? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Travis Rogers. Not only do I host this podcast, but I also host the Rams pre, half, and post-game show on their flagship station, ESPN 710. I do that with my partner, Kirk Morrison, 2 hours before the kick of each and every Rams game. Then, of course, we do the post-game show immediately following. So if you are in and around the Los Angeles area, make sure that you check that one out. We'll get going around 11 o'clock on Sunday morning when they take on the Seahawks. You can follow me on Twitter at Travis Rogers. You can also click that subscribe button on your podcast feed so you get your Locked On Rams content every single day. And I would also encourage you to check out the Locked On Rams podcast, or I should say the Locked On Rams YouTube channel as well. That's a really good way to take in the pod also. Okay, here is what's coming up. Who plays quarterback this weekend? There's Sean McVay kind of throwing a little bit of smoke in the air to try to maybe cause a little bit of misdirection, a little bit of confusion and preparing for them for the Seattle Seahawks coming up on Sunday. So we'll talk about that in just 1 second. There is yet another metric to show you just how disappointing this team has been. 0 leaders in Pro Bowl balloting at any position, and this is a thing that the Rams used to be really, really good at. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes as well. But let's start right here. Let's start with where do you go from here? And we've asked this question a lot of different ways, a lot of different times over the course of the last several weeks, because the fact of the matter is, this season, really since the Tampa loss, and you could even probably go a little bit for in retrospect, you could almost go back to opening night against the Bills. This season has not been what the Rams had hoped for. Far from it, right? Super Bowl champs last year, and this is going to be a 4-win team, 5-win team, 3-win team. All of these are possibilities. I know I say this a lot, but I would be shocked if it's more than 5. I don't think they'll get to 5. I think it's probably 4. I think they'll beat either Denver or the Raiders. I think those are your 2 best bets, and I don't think either one of those are a slam dunk. Thankfully, Russell Wilson's terrible. But anyway, so this season is not what you were hoping it would be. So the question becomes, what are you looking at? We've talked about evaluations. We've talked about trying to find some depth. We've talked about all of these things. You do not have a first-round draft pick this year, which is, unfortunate because it's going to be a very, very high pick. It may be as high as the 2nd pick in the draft. It almost certainly will not be out of the top 5. And that pick's going to go to Detroit in the Matthew Stafford trade. So you don't have a high first-round draft pick available to you this year. That does not mean that you might not have one available for you in 2024. And it's already starting, and it was hard not to watch what Caleb Williams was doing on Saturday night against Notre Dame here in LA, and not say to yourself, that would look pretty good. That would look pretty good in a Rams uniform. I know that the Rams just extended Matthew Stafford. I know that there are a lot of dollars tied up in Matthew Stafford's future here in LA. I've said it here on the podcast a number of times that, one of the reasons I don't think you're going to see him the rest of this year is because he's the future of your team. The future may be next year. Look, what do we know for sure? We know for sure that the Rams are not afraid of making big moves. We know that they're not afraid of moving into position to draft a player. We know that they're not afraid to throw future draft picks into trade opportunities, right, Matt? The reason they don't have a pick this upcoming draft or the last draft or the draft before that or before that or before that is because they threw in a bunch of picks to go get Jared Goff. They threw in a bunch of picks to go get rid of Jared Goff and get Matthew Stafford. So they're not reluctant to make a deal. So that's interesting. They're also not reluctant to move on from somebody once they've decided that that's not the somebody that they want anymore. Again, i.e. Jared Goff. Let me ask you this, and I think the answer is one guy, but when you look at all the quarterbacks that have been drafted over the last, call it 5-6 years or so, what do they all have in common? What is the thing that you almost never see anymore? The last quarterback that was a pocket passer, that was a drop back, survey the field, deliver the ball in traffic, stand in the pocket and make big throws. Who was the last guy like that was drafted? Yep, you know who it is. It's Jared Goff, right? And look, Jared Goff's having a nice season. I'm very happy for him. He was a nice guy, and he was a pretty good football player for the Rams. But when you look at all the other young quarterbacks in this league, and both the guys that are having a great deal of success and some of the guys that are struggling, but what are they all similar? They're all guys that can move, not running quarterbacks. I'm not talking about the second coming of Michael Vick. What I'm talking about are guys that can do both of the things that you would like them to do. The evolution of quarterback in this league is, and I'm talking over the course of the last 30 years or so. It went, you can't have your quarterback run. He's going to get hit. He's going to get killed. Stay in the pocket, throw the ball, stand back there, look, and make big throws. Okay, fine. Well, when you got Joe Montana and John Elway and Terry Bradshaw and Dan Fouts and all of these guys, and sure, yeah, why not? That's been the thing that's worked. Then it started to be, if you're having a guy that can run occasionally, that's great. So then you're going to see a Michael Vick type, but we got to keep him in the pocket. And then you start to see the evolution of these things. And now it's, hey, why are we trying to make Michael Vick do the things that he doesn't do well? And why are we trying to prevent him from the things that he does exceptionally well? Here comes Lamar Jackson and guys like him, which is just let Lamar do the Lamar stuff. Maybe he's not a great passer, but nobody ever really gets to hit him. And now we fast forward a little bit beyond that, and it's this combination of player. It's a combination of player which can move his feet to get out of trouble and also sit back in the pocket and read defenses and make big throws. Also can pick up first downs with his legs. Also can do the thing to get down, get out of the way. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Mahomes. We're talking about Justin Herbert. You're talking about Tua. You're talking about Josh Allen. You're talking about Joe Burrow. These guys aren't all running quarterbacks, but what they are guys that can move, can get out of the way, can continue to extend a play. What is Caleb Williams? He's exactly that. He's that next generation. He's kind of this weird combination. I'm not saying he's as good as either one of these guys or that he will ever be as good as one of these guys, but he's an odd combination of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, which is big and strong like Allen and can do some things and move his feet like Allen, but he can throw on the run like Mahomes. He gets down on the ground like Mahomes. You don't get to hit him. They're the guy that's the Matthew Stafford type. And Matthew Stafford is the previous generation of quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, is kind of that middle ground where they can move their feet a little bit. Tom Brady stood in the pocket. Peyton Manning stayed in the pocket. Now you want guys that can move. That's Caleb Williams. I'm not saying you tank. I don't think the NFL is set up to go tank necessarily. What I'm saying is that may be a guy who is the next big thing. The Rams have always been very interested in going to find the next big thing. It's 2 drafts away. He's not even eligible to be drafted until 2024. The Rams do have a first-round draft pick in 2024. Now, whether he's the first pick in the draft, the 5th, 10th, 20th, I don't know. He's got to play a whole nother season of college football. All I know is it looks pretty good right now. All I know is that seems to be the direction that NFL football is headed, more in that college mode, mobile, big, strong, fast quarterbacks who can do all of the things that you're asking them to do. And we know that the Rams are willing to move on. Just throwing it out there. Just look, they're 3-8. These are the things that we're going to talk about when teams are 3-8 along the way. All right, coming up next, no Pro Bowlers, no leading Pro Bowlers. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. But first, let's talk about our friends at Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. It's so large that it is available in the U.S., the UK, Canada, and Australia. How about that? So you don't have to worry about boring rental cars. You can find your drive at Turo.com. So you're asking, who uses Turo.com? I don't know, me. My family took a vacation a couple of summers ago. We used Turo, and it was great. We got the big SUV for the family and our friends, and we didn't have to go through and find it. Just go into Turo, Turo.com. Find the car that you want. You need to pick up, Turo.com. You want to try an EV, Turo.com. You want something really fancy, Turo.com. Like I mentioned, the world's largest car sharing marketplace. Skip all that rental car non-stuff. Turo's nothing like that. You've got hosts, they hook you up, they go right to where you want to go, they drop the car off. You can't beat it. Turo.com. This episode of Locked on Rams is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Block Forever right now, wherever you get your podcasts. And maybe you're asking yourself, what is Block Forever? Well, it is a brand new podcast from former NFL pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. Ryan and his guests discuss all sorts of different football topics like player psyche, betting, playing through pain, being a leader, how to deal with difficult teammates. There is absolutely nothing that's out of bounds. It is available for free on Audible wherever you get your podcasts, available everywhere right now. Audible, get in the game. All right, so what I mean, the Rams are in the position they're in for a variety of different reasons, but one of the main reasons that the Rams have been in the position that they're in is because they have been as top heavy as they have in their roster construction. Star hunters, right? Aaron Donald, star. Jalen Ramsey, star. Bobby Wagner, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, right on down the line. Star, right? All of these guys. And the way that you're going to win with all of those guys is if they all show up and play like all pros. If they all show up, and Aaron Donald is, well, yeah, he's still Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey can't throw to that side of the field. Oh, look at Bobby Wagner just cleaning everybody up. And wow, Cooper Kupp's doing all the things that he's done all of his career. And Matthew Stafford, wow, what an unbelievable opportunity to get him out of Detroit. And the Rams are scoring a bunch of points and everybody's happy. And here we go. And let's go win the Super Bowl again. And look at all of our wonderful players and Pro Bowl guys across the place. Not this season, right? Of all those stars that I mentioned, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, go ahead and throw Allen Robinson in there. At least he was a star prior to coming to LA. The first round of Pro Bowl voting has come out. And you know how many Rams are leading? Zero. Zero. That is how bad it has been. There is not one single player who is leading his position in the Pro Bowl voting. Now, obviously, this is very different than it used to be. This is because the team is bad this year, because the team is not winning a bunch of games, because the team seems to have very quickly morphed from a team that was going to be good every single season, or at least in the mix every single season, to, all right, let's shut this thing down and start getting guys healthy and start making sure you don't get anybody else hurt. And hey, let's look at that 2024 draft to we're 3-8 and they might not win another game along the way. You might not win. Not that anybody, I shouldn't say anybody was going to watch the Pro Bowl. People do watch the Pro Bowl, or the Pro Bowl games, as it has now been rebranded. There are not going to be a lot of Rams there. Cooper Kupp probably would have gotten there had he stayed healthy enough to get to the end of the line this season. Aaron Donald, at least from like things like Pro Football Focus and the grades that come along there, he's having one of those types of season. I don't know how much more football we're going to see from Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey has been less than the best version of Jalen Ramsey. Bobby Wagner's been really, really good. I think of all of the very disappointing moments in this season, very disappointing acquisitions, very disappointing performances that we've seen from this team all season long, Bobby Wagner is not on that list. He's been really, really good. Yeah, I watch football the way that I think probably the vast majority of you do. I watch it like a football fan. I watch it. I watch the ball, right? And you're watching where the ball goes, who's got the ball, are they going to score? But you watch the quarterbacks and whatnot, right? Who doesn't? Do yourself a favor, and if you can, watch Bobby Wagner play some just individual. Watch him. Don't watch where the ball is going necessarily. Just watch Bobby Wagner, because a couple of things. One, you're going to see how good he is and how unbelievably effective he can be. But number two, the ball's going to end up where he is a lot of times, because that guy's got a nose for it for sure. But other than him, none of these guys are really setting the world on fire when it comes to the ability to get into the Pro Bowl or get votes or get attention or anything. Obviously, a lot of it comes along with being on a good team. You're always going to have players on the best teams get a lot of this attention. But it's just another very obvious indicator of how unbelievably disappointing this season has been, of how unbelievably underwhelming their star players have been. Matthew Stafford has been hurt. He also hasn't been very good. The only Bobby Wagner, like I mentioned, and the other player that was very, very good this year for the Rams that we're just going to, it's kind of going to go by the board. We're going to forget that it even happened, is Cooper Kupp. Because he until he went down, he was great. Now, it didn't lead to a lot of team success, but individually, he was putting up some really big, impressive, important numbers. But when we get January 8th, and not that I have it circled or anything, not that I am looking forward to talking about next season as soon as possible, but January 8th is the Rams' final home game or final game of the season. It's actually a road game against the Seahawks. That's it. That's the last time you're going to see any of these guys until camp next year, and it cannot get here fast enough because this has been a total bust of a season. All right, speaking of the bust of the season, is Sean McVay trying to muddy the water a little bit about who might play quarterback this weekend? We know, well, I shouldn't say. I was going to say we know who it won't be. Do we? Do we have any idea who might take snaps this weekend? I got a pretty good idea. I'll tell you what I think coming up next on Locked On Rams. Word from our friends at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You know how difficult it can be just to find the right group of people? LinkedIn Jobs can help you do it. Here's how you do it. You put your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame on your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're looking, that you're hiring, right? Simple tools, screening questions, make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. So check out LinkedIn Jobs. It helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making the Locked On Rams pod your first listen every single day. Now, for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today pod. Biggest stories, biggest instant reactions, biggest game recaps, biggest takes of the day, all the big stuff available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so let's talk about who's going to play quarterback this week for the Rams. No official word on anybody, really, which I think is done purposefully. I think that the Rams are at that point where they're trying to figure out what they have, what they don't have, who they want, who they don't want, who to keep, who to let go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Matthew Stafford has not been officially ruled out for this weekend. He hasn't been officially ruled in either. John Wolford, he was dressed and ready to play against the Chiefs if they needed him last week. Bryce Perkins obviously started the game, ended the game, and had a mixed performance. I think is probably a fair way of explaining that. But McVay is saying, look, I don't know who it's going to be. He's hinted that it may be a mixture of both Perkins and Wolford. He's also being a little bit coy about Matthew Stafford. I get it. I understand that there are some, I don't know if politics is the right word, but there are some feelings that probably need to be managed a little bit. That if you're saying, look, we're shutting him down because he's more important, but you guys go out there and get your, ankles sprained and your, bumps and bruises that come along with playing in the NFL or worse, you guys can go do that. But it's also kind of what it is. I said it at the time when he went out in the middle of the New Orleans game. That was it. You weren't going to see Matthew Stafford again. It just was not going to happen, nor should it. And I don't think that anything has changed. What has changed is maybe a little bit of both. That you're going to get a little bit of Wolford, a little bit of Perkins. I don't quite understand that. I don't quite understand what you need to see from John Wolford. I know he hasn't played a lot. I know that he hasn't gotten the opportunities that maybe a lot of other backups may. Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff and all the other players that they've had in that situation, they've been relatively healthy, so they haven't missed a lot of time. And when they have, John Wolford has been what he's been. He's been okay. I've never, no, he's really good. He came in and went, come on, man. Let's be honest about it. He doesn't throw with great anticipation. He's not as athletic as I think a lot of people would like you to believe. I think he's okay. I don't think he's a bum, but I don't think he's particularly interesting. Bryce Perkins is interesting to me. I don't know how good he is, but he's interesting. He can move. he's chill as you know what. He does not seem to be a guy that is sped up. He doesn't seem to be a guy that's overwhelmed by NFL football in any meaningful way. So let's see how good he might be. Maybe he's not, but let's find out. I feel very confident saying that I don't think John Wolford has a future as anything other than a guy that bounces around as a backup quarterback here and there. I don't know the answer to that for Bryce Perkins. I'd like to find out. You got 6 games more to do it. Give him to Bryce Perkins. See what it is. Then at least at that point, if it's bad, you know it's bad and you keep it moving. I think you know the answer to it with Bryce or with John Wolford. Wait until Stafford gets healthy, put him back on the field next year, see what's going on with Caleb Williams, right? And go from there. See what you got with Bryce Perkins. See if you can't generate a little bit of interest around the league. And you're not going to get a first-round pick. You're not going to get, but you might get a 4th or 5th, something. Somebody somewhere needs another quarterback. They always do. Every team does. Give it a look. It won't be Stafford. I'll put my money on Bryce Perkins. Maybe you see a little bit of Wolford just to kind of keep people honest, but I'd be surprised if you see him as well. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rams. Thanks for making it your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today pod. The games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, whose house? It's the Locked On Rams house.